music right here in beautiful downtown Knoxville, Tennessee. We're in the Old City today at Barley's for the Big Plate. Feel free to come join us. But if you can't be here, know it is streaming live on our social pages as well as our YouTube channel, where you can also watch it back later at your convenience. Our guest today shows up about this time every year. And, well, year after year, you all show up to see him once again. Give a great big welcome to the return of Michael Reno Harrell to the Big Plate, live from Barley.
Well, hey. Well, my old John boat has long been sleeping out there under the shed. I'm gonna clear out the spiders and the junk inside her, then drag her to my pickup bed. Put the tailgate down, slide her up to the cab, 'cause I intend to deliver that old vessel to the foot of the trestle that runs across the French Broad River. So what do you say? We get together, swap a few stories about the good old days. You know, they're calling for some really nice weather. Tomorrow don't come with a promise. When's the last time we took a whole day? You know, time and the river just keep a rolling. So, oh, buddy, what do you say? Back her down in the water where the bottom's all gravel. Back her until the tailpipe bubbles. Yank the cord on the old outboard and say adios to old man trouble. 'Cause there's catfish needing to be frying in a skillet by the time that the moon appears. I got a pretty good deal on a Zebco reel and a cooler full of ice cold beer. So what do you say? We get together, we can swap a few stories about the good old days. You know, they're calling for some really nice weather. Tomorrow don't come with a promise. When's the last time we took a whole day? You know, time and the river just keep a rolling. So, oh, buddy, what do you say? Yeah, time and the river just keep a rolling. So, oh, buddy, what do you say? I say if you got the bait, I got the beer. Thank you very much.
Michael Reno Harrell with us here today on the Blue Plate Special. I'm not used to talking before Michael has already talked for a while, so it's wow. That was a quick song for
That was a quick song.
That was a quick song.
It don't take long to say that.
Yo, Michael's got a new haircut. What do you think?
Well, people were mistaking me for Ebenezer Scrooge, you know, so it's time to change.
I think it looks great, but I think it's hilarious when he cut it. It turned up curly.
It was a surprise to me, too. It was.
Oh, the things we learn as we age. So, Michael, what's been going on lately?
We've been running the road, you know. Well, I quit flying, you know, about 3 years ago, so that cut out about 85% of the country. But the country that's left runs from about Washington down to Orlando, and I get all the accents there. I don't have to have a translator anymore.
Get them all. Well, you've been making some music there with Josh Goforth?
Yeah, Josh Goforth and I, for the last 3 years, have been doing quite a few shows together. Anytime we've been on the Storytelling Festival together, they always give us a set together. And we're doing the opening show on Thursday night at the National Storytelling Festival in Jonesboro this year. We're doing the opening show. And we've hired two outstanding bluegrass players, mandolin player and a bass player to play with us, so we'll have a big time.
Awesome. It's going to be a band.
Yeah, it's a band. We're not used to that.
So, aside from making music. Well, the storytelling part.
Doing
It's part
storytelling.
of it as
Still
well.
doing artwork, still doing a lot of commissions for folks, you
Well,
know.
the storytelling kind of leads into the book part of it. You've got a couple of books over there that you have written.
Yep.
Still making music out there.
Still
Lots
making
of
music.
CDs available. But Michael is an amazing visual artist as well. And you have a whole website for your art,
Yeah,
isn't that right?
Macareno.art.
Michael Reno Art.
Macarenoart.com.
There you
Or
go.
something like that. Joan knows what it is.
That's
I've never been to it personally.
Well, I'll tell you what. She's got handy dandy little business cards where you can take those with you and find it pretty easily.
Take a picture with your phone of that little thing on there, and it'll take you right there.
Tomorrow, they're going to be in Morristown for his yearly homecoming, I guess it is, at the Rose Center there. You can find more of his schedule by visiting michaelreno.com. That's it. I'll talk more later. Let's get more music from Michael Reno Harrell on the Big Plate live from Barley's.
Well, thank you, Red. Isn't she something else? I'm telling you what, y'all are the luckiest people in the world. Red Hickey lives right here and works on this radio station. I want to send this song out to our adopted grandfather, Sparkle, down there in Sparkle City, South Carolina. Hello, darling. Dedicate this one to you. Well, it rained every day for a week. We had pots and pans and cans everywhere there was a leak. The sheetrock in the living room came down in one big sheet on the couch. And the TV and you and me. To do. Remember that above the clouds the sky is always blue. And if I was a betting man, I tell you what I'd do. I'd bet it all on me and you. We put every dime we had in that old car, but it's getting hard to count on, 'cause it's getting hard to start. We're better off to walk these days if it ain't all that far to the place we gotta be, you and me. Tell you what we need to do. Remember that above the clouds the sky is always blue. And if I was a betting man, I tell you what I'd do. I'd bet it all on me and you. Well, I hear they're calling for a hurricane, and I don't think this old house can stand another drop of rain. Forget evacuation, that old car won't stand the strain, but we'll make do. We'll make it through, me and you. Remember that above the clouds the sky is always blue. And if I was a betting man, I tell you what I'd do. I'd bet it all on me and you. Yeah, if I was a betting man, I tell you what I'd do, I'd bet it all on me and you. Thank you. Thank you all. I had an epiphany when I was 10 years old. I discovered that I was born 80 years too late. Because all my best friends were 80 years old when I was 10. Because they had time to fool around with young'uns like me. And I wanted to know everything about how my people are from the Blue Ridge back here. I was, you know, the Appalachians are actually two different mountain ranges. You got the Blue Ridge over there, over past Newport, and that runs from, you know, the northern part of Georgia up to Front Royal, Virginia. And then you got the Cumberlands back here, and that runs all the way to Nova Scotia, basically. And the difference is the Blue Ridge don't have any coal. So all of them old people, they cut timber for a living. They didn't have to mine coal. But they cut out all the timber after a while, and then they run out of anything to do, so they just started telling stories to one another. So I had a lot of time to hang around with old men that had time to tell stories. One of my very best friends, and if you heard me talk about these old boys that I hung around with, my granddaddy on my mama's side was named Motorcycle Eddie Cole. Motorcycle Eddie Cole, it's on his tombstone. Had a 1913 Indian V-twin that people said he rode everywhere he went. I asked Stover, who had been his best friend, they were born around adjoining farms, grew up together just like brothers. I asked him one time, I said, did my granddaddy really ride that Indian motorcycle everywhere he went? Stover looked at me and said, well, he'd crank it up to go to the outhouse. I mean, who didn't want to hang around with people like that, you know? I mean, him and Sam Burton. Sam Burton taught me my first 3 chords on the guitar. So here's a song to them old boys. He'd use a jar lid for an ashtray when he sat out on the porch and drank a beer. He drove a 37 Chevy with his late wife's picture hanging from the mirror. He was a poet and a prophet and a purveyor of Appalachian sin. And he was old before I met him, but a boy ain't never had a better friend. I was 10 when he turned 80, but he always was a kid deep down inside. He'd pull up in the yard and holler, come on, boy, let's go take us a ride. We'd see blacksmiths turning horseshoes, go to stock sales, watch pocket knives trade hands. Then we'd eat filling station hot dogs. No, boy, ain't never had a better friend. I could tell him anything, knowing he'd take all my secrets to his grave. He loved to pick the guitar, and I loved every song he ever played. Lord, I'd give $100 to hear him sing You're Cheating Hard Again. He'd let me bang on his old guitar. No, boy, ain't never had a better friend. When I turned 17, I packed up my guitar and I lit out. I was off to find what Woody Guthrie had written all them songs about. I was somewhere in Montana when my old buddy's road came to an end. I sang so lonesome I could cry, 'cause the boy ain't never had a better friend. I could tell him anything, knowing he'd take all my secrets to his grave. He loved to pick the guitar, oh, and I loved every song he ever played. Lord, I'd give $100 to hear him sing Your Cheating Heart again. Now it's been over 60 years that this old boy ain't never had a better friend. And let me introduce you to one of my very dearest friends. He's sitting right here on my lap. This is Cisco. Cisco was a 1963 Martin D21 made in Nazareth, Pennsylvania. I named him Cisco because Woody Guthrie's best friend was an old boy by the name of Cisco Houston. And for some reason, I thought I was Woody Guthrie. Now, the way that we came together was kind of an interesting story. You may have heard me talk about how I discovered this music. I walked into my cousin's bedroom one night, and she said, listen to this, and she put the Kingston Trio Sold Out record on her little Philco record player. And I listened to that side, and I turned it over, and I listened to that side, and I turned it back over, and I listened to that side again, and I turned it back over, and listened to the other side again. Y'all remember when you had LPs and your favorite record, I don't know, Madman Across the Water by Elton John, or Bill Monroe and the Bluegrass Boys, I don't know, whatever it was, and you'd listen to it so many times that when you put the stylus down on it, it would just go and slide to the middle. But somebody told you put a quarter on the arm of your record player and you can get more mileage out of your records. You remember that? I went in her bedroom at 6:32 on a Friday evening and walked out Sunday night at 7:18, and by then I had $2.68 in change on the top of her record player arm. I had been converted. I had been converted to the Church of Woody Guthrie. So I went and traded my snare drum because I had decided I was going to become a jazz drummer when I was a young man. And I can tell you in 1963, jazz drumming was huge in East Tennessee. Anyway, I traded my snare drum for a K guitar at Charlie's Pawn Shop in Morristown, Tennessee. Had no idea what to do with it, and took it to them old men over in North Carolina, and they showed me my first 4 chords, and I was off and running. Now, we had to bring our report cards home every 6 weeks, and mine were looking pretty sad, I tell you, because all I could think about was the guitar. I would carry that K guitar up and down the hallway of Morristown High School and go, it ain't no use to sit and wonder why. And then I'd walk in Spanish class, put the guitar in the corner and do L something another, and back down the hallway with that. That's all I could think about. I'd go home, I'd lock myself in my bedroom, and I would try to figure out what those boys were doing. Like I say, we had to bring our report cards home every 6 weeks, and we had to put them down by my daddy's plate at supper time. And then we'd all sit there and eat supper, and I'd be going, this ain't going to be good. I better eat while I can. I remember my dad looking at my report card. He'd looked at my brothers, and they were like, oh, what happened here, Greg? An A minus. My goodness, what have you been sleeping through class? You know. And then he looked at mine. He opened it up, looked at both sides of it, like maybe there's something better on the back, you know. And he slid it right back down in the envelope, and I swear if I'm lying, I'm dying. He looked straight at my mother and said, Aretha, we need to buy Michael a better guitar. And the next day, they went to Lynn Shealy's in Morristown, Tennessee, and bought me this guitar and paid $270 for it. The case that it's in costs more than $270 today. But I don't get him out much, but this is such a special occasion he wanted to come. So y'all say hey to Cisco. Now, usually my dad wasn't that much fun. I mean, he was pretty serious. He had grown up in the cotton mills in South Carolina, so he called it frugal. My mother called it cheap. We would go into town on Saturdays. We wouldn't park downtown. We'd park out in some neighborhood because downtown they had these things called parking meters. And my dad refused to pay money to sit still. Now, my mama wasn't nothing like that at all. My daddy never threw a baseball at me once in my life, and my mother would stand there and throw balls back and forth to you till your arms fell off. So here's one about Mama. Mama had a toothpick between her teeth. She was reaching for the corner of a twin bed sheet. A whole week's laundry on the line when she heard the doorbell chime. It was the Avon lady, Leanne Brewer, bringing Mama's Avon order to her. Had lipstick and a little perfume, then coffee in the living room. It made Mama's day, little things like that. All it took was a Tupperware bowl or a Rubbermaid placemat. She'd drive to the Woolworth 5 and dime just to ride the escalator, and kept a half a gallon of peach ice cream in our old Kelvinator. Well, Daddy shined up his cowboy boots. Mama pressed Daddy's Sunday suit when once a year they'd go out to eat for Mama's birthday treat. Well, they'd drive the truck across the county line, have T-bone steak and store-bought wine, dance till the Moose Lodge locked the door, and get home about 4:30. It made Mama's day, little things like that. All it took was a new hairdo or a cute little pillbox hat. She'd drive to the Woolworth 5 and dime just to ride the escalator, and kept a half a gallon of peach ice cream in our old Kelvinator. And then Mama got sick with a female matter, so Daddy'd sit by her and he'd look right at her, then he'd sneak out back and smoke a cigarette, praying underneath his breath. Well, she couldn't do nothing 'cause the doc wouldn't let her, so Grandma stayed till Mama got better. We all chipped in and Daddy bought flowers, and it made Mama grin for hours. It made Mama's day, little things like that. All it took was her favorite book or a blue-eyed Siamese cat. She'd drive to the Woolworth 5 and dime just to ride the escalator, and kept a half a gallon of peach ice cream in our old Kelvinator. Yeah, we always had some peach ice cream in our old Kelvinator. Thank you, Mama, for all the ice cream and all the love.
We must have been high class. We had Frigidaire at our house. It's Michael Reno Harrell with us here today on the Big Plate live from Barley's. Support for the WDVX Big Plate comes from Barley's right here in Knoxville's Old City. They take very good care of us at WDVX. Please take good care of your servers and your bartender. Additional support comes from Modelo Especial. So one of the things that, and I think right now I'm supposed to tell you who's going to come see us next week. Well, we're going to get an appearance from a new band called the Deadbeat Scoundrels. And lucky for Red, she's getting some rockabilly. And they do some blues as well. So you can find out more about them by visiting our website there at WDVX.com. Many people, we know that you live over in North Carolina these days and you're from Morristown, but you lived in Knoxville for
I lived in Knoxville probably 7 different times. Usually I'd move in with Chris Schultz right there on the front row. I'd be out and go broke somewhere, and I knew Chris always had extra room, and we'd move in with Chris. I probably lived with Chris 5 times. We were roommates in Redbud Apartments, and there were 2 girls next door, and we married both of them. And divorced both of them too, didn't we? His present wife thinks that's hilarious.
It's a good thing she's got a good sense of humor there.
She'd have to have, darling.
So, and also, you played a lot of bluegrass.
I did, yeah. Once the Beatles came in '64 and folk music died, we went where the money was. We went in bluegrass.
Well, the World's Fair was good for that, anyway.
I was playing in a 7-piece country band in Myrtle Beach that year, and I never got to see one day of the World's Fair in Knoxville.
Doggone.
We were playing 6 nights a week, 5 sets a night.
Well, then you had the work. You had the work.
Oh, God.
Whether it was fun
It's
or not.
amazing how tourists think they can dance about 10:30 at night. It's hilarious.
Some people feel sexier after dark.
Well, yeah. They look better in dim lighting, too.
All right, y'all. It's Michael Reno Harrell with us here today on the Big Plate, live from Barley's.
Thank you, Red. Red Hickey, ladies and gentlemen. I joined a folk group right after. That's the time I got this guitar. There were 3 guys called the Green Mountain Trio when I was a freshman in high school. They were seniors. And then I got this guitar just before I turned to be a sophomore, and they were gone. They were graduated. David Costin, Charlie Vaughn, and Charlie Carlisle. And they were working a lot. They had an agent here in Knoxville. They'd been on all the television, WB, Johnson City, all over Asheville here. They were doing good. They were playing fraternity parties at all the universities. And Charlie Carlisle's daddy said, "You need to go to college, boy." And the other 2 decided they were going to see how far they could take this thing. So they had auditions. And I saw a flyer for it at Charlie's Pawn Shop that they were going to be auditioning for a lead singer that could play 6-string guitar, because Charlie played tenor guitar a lot, and David played banjo. And they were looking for and one was a tenor and one was a baritone, and they were looking for a lead singer, and I thought, that's me. I was 14. And And so they had auditions, and all these college guys came, and I was the last one. You had to sing a Kingston Trio song with them. I forget which one it was, to see how you blended. Everybody sang the same song. And then they said, okay, play something by yourself. So I did Don't Think Twice and finger picked it. And at the end, everybody else had gone, and they said, we'll let you know something in about a week, you know. And I went up and said, well, what did you think of what I did? And they said, well, actually, we thought you blended with us better than anybody else, and we like the way you play guitar, but we're not going to hire you. And I said, well, why not? And he said, you're 14 years old. Nobody's parents is going to let them go on the road playing music at 14. And I had heard the term starving musician. I became immensely famous. I understood it well over the years, but at that time, so I talked my mother into cooking a fried chicken dinner with fried okra, mashed potatoes, biscuits, all that, and invited Charlie and David over, and they sat there and went through my mother's cooking, and at the end of it, Charlie and David and my dad and my mother and I went in the living room, and we started talking about this music thing. And my daddy had looked at my report card, and I swear to God, within 30 minutes, he just gave me to those boys. And I mean that, literally, I moved out. We had a band house in Morristown. Now, I still was back home and all, you know, eating and all that stuff. But we were playing all over the place. And one night, we'd played a fraternity party Saturday night down here at UT. And we were going back home. And it was about, 2 o'clock on a Sunday morning. We were driving down Main Street in Morristown going east. And we got stopped by the red light there at Hill Avenue. And it's like 2 o'clock in the morning, and there are all these nice cars parked up and down Main Street at 2 o'clock on a Sunday morning. And I'm going, what's going on here? And I looked, and right there on the corner, diagonally across, is the Commerce Bank. Right next to the Commerce Bank is Specs Pool Hall. And the lights were on in Specs. And I thought, what in the world could be going on in a pool room at 2 o'clock on a Sunday morning? Remember, I was 14 and naive. And I said to David, I said, what do you reckon is going on in there? And he said, I don't know, but I'm ready to go to bed. And as soon as the light changed, I said, let me out. I'll just walk. It wasn't but a quarter of a mile to where David's place was. So I got up, and I had been in Specs many times, but not by the front door, because you had to be 18 to go in and out the front door. But there was a back door, and nobody cared how old you were if you went in and out of that one. So I just snuck up Hill Avenue, looked down the alleyway, and the back door of Specs was standing open. It was summertime, and light was just flooding out across the gravel there. So I just snuck down the wall and peeked in the back door of Specs at 2 o'clock in the morning, and, of course, the lights were on. Now, those of you who are familiar with Specs Billiard Emporium will remember that there's 3 big concrete steps that went down to the floor because Hill Avenue, the elevation was above Main Street. So the ceiling was low, so I bent down and peeked around the corner, and I could see the pool tables lined up down. And right in the middle down there was a young boy with a cue stick in suit pants with his jacket laying across over here. And he was chalking a cue. And George the Rack, the guy that took your money at the pool table and ran the snack bar, had his rack around his neck and his nail apron with his change and his dollar bills in it. And standing, leaning against the adjoining table with his suit jacket off, was the prominent lawyer in our town. And that boy chalked that cue, and he broke the rack. And when he did, he cracked it. When he did, the 15 ball and the 13 ball fell, and he chalked his cue, and before the ball stopped rolling, he shot the 9 ball, and I knew immediately they're shooting 8 ball because he's shooting the high balls and waiting to get that 8. He just walked from one side of the table to the other, chalking and shooting. And I thought, I got to watch this. Now, on the left side, all the way to the front, is a concrete platform about 3 feet deep and about 2 feet high, and it's completely covered with old seats from the Princess Theater. And when I snuck down those steps and got in that last dark seat back there, there were 3 men sitting down from me in the light down there next to the table, 3 other prominent lawyers from my hometown, buddies of this old boy that was shooting against this young kid. Now, there was an empty seat, and then there was the president of the Commerce Bank. There was an empty seat, and then there was the sheriff of our hometown, of our home county, Hamlin County, Billy P. Lampkin. Now, sitting next to Billy P. Lampkin was the sheriff of Cocke County, Tennessee. I feel so at home. I don't have to tell you what that means, do I? If you want to get into a $10,000 poker game on a Tuesday night, cross the river. That's all you got to do. If you want to fight chickens, go across the river. If you want to buy or sell moonshine, go across the river. That boy run the table, didn't even look, just pointed his cue stick at the corner pocket, banked to the 8-ball twice, and in the pocket it went, and he started unscrewing his cue stick. Put it in the case, zipped it up, and looked over at that lawyer and said, well, that's it. And that lawyer hung his head, and he reached over and he got his suit coat, and he got his wallet out of the jacket pocket, and he just reached in and got all the bills and just laid them down on the pool table. And I could see from back there where I was that was a stack of hundreds. That boy walked over, he couldn't have been 20, walked over and just fanned those bills out across the table like a blackjack dealer. Just fanned them across the table, took one look at him and said, you're short. And the lawyer said, yeah, I know, I'll have to write you a check for the rest of it. And that boy looked right at him and said, the deal was we play in cash. And so that lawyer said, well, I'm out of cash, I'll have to write you a check. He said, nope, the deal was cash. Well, about that time, I'm looking down the line there watching the responses, and at the far end down there, the sheriff of Cocke County leans over to the sheriff of Hamlin County and whispers something in his ear, and Billy Lampkin nods his head. He leans over and talks to the banker, says something in his ear. The banker looks at him, nods his head. Then he gets up and walks over to the lawyer leaning against the table over there, says something to him, and the lawyer frowns and nods his head. Well, about that time, the lawyer, the banker, and the sheriff of Hamlin County walk to the front of the pool room, and George unlocks the door, and they walk outside, and he locks the door. Well, of course, up and down that row of seats, people are just just madness going on about what's happening here tonight. Well, about 5 minutes later, George unlocked the door, and the banker and the sheriff and the lawyer walked in, and the lawyer walked straight to that young boy and handed him a white envelope. That young boy opened the envelope, just raked his thumb across the bills in it, nodded his head once, picked up that fan stack of hundreds on the table, put them in with that, put his jacket on, put that envelope in his breast pocket. He and the sheriff of Cocke County walked out the front door, and I never saw either one of them again in my life. And I thought, right now might not be the most opportune time for a 14-year-old folk singer to be sitting in a place like this. So I eased up the back steps and was gone. But you can bet your last dollar that Monday morning at 9 o'clock when George unlocked the back door of Speck's Billiard Emporium, young Michael Reno Harrell was standing there. He opened the door and looked up and saw me and said, I thought I'd see you waiting up there. I said, yeah, I got to find out who that was, and he was already headed for the front. He went up and put a pot of water on the hot plate and dumped some hot dogs in it. Looked at me and said, you don't know who that boy was? I said, I'd like to know. He said, son, that was the Detroit Kid. I said, the Detroit Kid? Huh. Something didn't sound right about that, but what did I know? I said, boy, he sure skinned that lawyer, didn't he? He said, oh, he was here about 9 months ago and skinned him the first time. I said, really? He said, yeah. I said, how much money you reckon he took off of him that first time? He said, I don't know exactly, but he could have stopped by the Chevrolet dealer and bought a new Impala on the way home. I said, good Lord. People shoot pool for that much money? He said, oh, good Lord, son. He said, last night he could have stopped by the Cadillac dealer this morning on the way home. Well, I carried that story around for years. I told it to people in bars. I told it to people riding in tour buses. I told it just to people all over. I never told it from the stage. Because there was always something wrong with and it had occurred to me. When that boy said, we play for cash, there ain't nobody in Detroit, born in Detroit, that says cash. I said, that boy's from the Appalachian Mountains somewhere. And just by the way he talked, I thought, I know people that talk like that. They're coal miners from eastern Kentucky. So I was on my way to Indianapolis and made a little tour through Harlan County. And I stopped. Harlan County is a ghost town. Harlan, Kentucky is just, there's nothing left of it but empty buildings. A McDonald's and a couple of convenience stores. And I thought, well, I'll try. I stopped in a convenience store and there's a little gal in there, she must have been 12. Running the cash register. And I said, can I ask you a question? She said, what is it? I said, did there ever been a pool room in this town? And she said, I don't know. I said, well, I was just wondering. She said, well, my granddaddy would know. I said, well, where's he? She said, right here. And she just picked up her cell phone and bam, bam, bam. Granddaddy, somebody wants to talk to you. And handed me the phone. And I said, hello, and introduced myself. I said, have you ever heard of anyone called the Detroit Kid? He said, not really. He said, but you did used to have this guy that was a pool shooter here. He shot 8-ball. And seems to me like he would stay up late at night when I'd get ready to go to work early. He'd still be in that pool room. And I remember a kid hanging out with him. That was all I needed. I'm a storyteller. Folks called him the Duke of Harlan in that East Kentucky town. He was a sure enough cue ball cracker, the best 8-ball shooter around. He'd tear the filter off a Winston cigarette and then mix 7-Up and Gilby's gin and shoot pool all night by the jukebox light and listen to Loretta Lynn. He'd been a miner in the Black Star coal mines, lost a leg when the roof came down, so he drew a little check from the union that paid for a room in town. He'd hit the pool hall at 6 in the evening like a gunslinger looking for a duel, shooting down some would-be hustler. Then he'd take me to 8-ball school. And he'd say life's a game of 8-ball, boy, so you gotta give it all you got. Then if your 8-ball falls in the wrong dang hole, well, at least you took a shot. Then one night he said, that's all I got, so here's what you need to do. Go to Detroit City, where they shoot high-dollar pool. 'Cause if you want to make a living with a cue-stick, boy, well, it's time to get down to it. And shooting Detroit pool will be a mighty hard school, but 1,000 games might do it. Then come sunup, we took my old truck to the Rock House Ridge up there. Sit around with the windows down and we breathed the mountain air. Then he handed me his cue-stick case, took a shot of Gilby's gin and said, may the infidel give Detroit hell. And then he winked at me and he grinned and he said, life's a game of 8-ball, boy, so you gotta give it all you got. Then if your 8-ball rolls in the wrong dang hole, well, at least you took a shot. Well, that night he never did show up. So I went to that dim-lit room. But when I knocked on the old Duke's door, it was quiet as a tomb. You see, that evening late, he'd made his 8. The good Lord took him home. We laid him to rest on the Rock House Ridge, and I walked back down alone. And I chalked his cue, and I racked him up. Took a shot of Gilby's gin. I cranked up that old jukebox and I played Loretta Lynn. There've been a lot of 8-balls and a lot of pool halls, and mostly I've come out ahead by doing what the old Duke taught me and living by the words that he said. Life's a game of 8-ball, so you gotta give it all you got. Then if your 8-ball rolls in the wrong dang hole, at least you took a shot. Thank you very much, the Duke of Harlan.
Michael Reno Harrell with us here today on the Big Plate Live from Barley's. R-E-N-O. It's Reno.
Just like Nevada.
You know, I tend to say it fast, and sometimes
it works
people
better
don't
if you
understand.
say it all at once.
Yeah, kind of have to. But he made it easy. It's just simply michaelreno.com for more information. Michael Reno Art to find all of his artwork there as well. That love bucket's in place, y'all. You know what to do. And feel free to stop by that merch table over there. Books, music, all kinds of good things over there.
Music,
stories,
lies.
shake hands, shaking howdy with him. Thank him for being here with us today. Tomorrow we'll be back up at Visit Knoxville with Trey Hedrick and Jeff Bearcat Bunch coming back to the Blue Plate Special. Next Friday, it's the Deadbeat Scoundrels with us here on the Big Plate. You can find more about both of those acts at WDVX.com. Wednesday night, we'll be at the Blue Tick Tavern in Maryville for Tennessee Shines with the Garrett Boys and the Montvales. You can find information on that at the website as well. Michael, thanks so much for being here with us.
My treat.
If you feel like a road trip tomorrow night, just right up the road in Morristown. I'll be at the Rose Center. And that hadn't sold out yet, has it?
I don't know, Miss Wiggy.
You might need
know.
to check the
We don't know.
website. He's pretty popular up in them parts. So thank you so much for taking time and coming and being here with us.
Thank you very
today.
much.
Yeah. Leave us with the last one.
All right. I want to tell you just my favorite Woody Guthrie story. Woody Guthrie and Leadbelly, you know, Hughie Ledbetter, were traveling. They'd been down in New Orleans, and they were headed up trying to get back to New York, and they made it as far as Memphis. Now, this is the way Woody used to tell it. They made it as far as Memphis, and they run out of money, and they thought, well, we'll play music on the street. Well, it was Memphis. About 700 other people already had that idea, right? So they were standing around trying to figure out how they could get hold of some money. And Leadbelly said, well, I've just written a song. Maybe we could sell it. So they went to a phone booth and found the name of a publishing company in the Yellow Pages, and they went and Leadbelly sang them this song, and it was, Irene, good night. They immediately gave him $50 for it. Signed a contract. They went outside, and Woody said, well, that was easy, so they sold it 5 more times before they left town. I'd like to know who all collected the royalties. It was #1 in 1950. Well, I've spent a lot of time around a campfire, spinning yarns and listening to the songs of hounds. And I've spent a lot of time around tall buildings, and I don't mind telling you what I have found. I found that wood smoke and laughter at a good joke in the company of legendary liars, and a story well recited by a fire has delighted both young and old since we discovered fire. Well, it was me and Sam and Stover and Tom Harmon around the fire with those old men when I was a kid. And their story is on the wind like leaves of autumn. Then Stover said, "Son, you tell us a story." And I did. 'Cause I knew that wood smoke and laughter at a good joke in the company of legendary liars, and a story well recited by a fire has delighted both young and old since we discovered fire. So some evening when the moon is big and shining, you don't need foxhounds, all you need's a kid. Build a fire if it's only in the backyard, and then tell stories, and you'll both be glad you did. You'll find with wood smoke and laughter at a good joke, you too can be a legendary liar, because a story well recited by a fire has delighted both young and old since we discovered fire. Anybody got a match? Bye-bye, Sparkle. Thank you.
Michael Reno Harrell, y'all. Thank you, and join us next time for more real live music on the Big Play Live from Barley's.